under a notice of intent, Walter Platt, 26 Drift Road, West Falmouth, for permission to demolish the existing garage and construct a single-family house with garage under, deck, install a Title V sewage disposal system, dry wells, utilities, and unpaved driveway, mitigation plantings, maintain the existing path and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance till August 15th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a problem with that date, and there could be quorum issues. I think we had to
Oh, actually, Madam Chairman,
discuss this.
Who's on the quorum for that one?
It's Ted, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, Ed, and Courtney.
No, so Ted's off.
So Ted's off. So you have Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, Ed, and Courtney.
I would recommend the 22nd.
we're not meeting the 22nd, it would have to be the 29th, and we need to request the applicant's representative, who I will go get, because he's here.
Do you see him? Otherwise, we'll postpone it. Mike, can you come up to the podium, please?
I'm not wearing a hat.
I know.
Would
You're not in
your,
trouble. We-
26
Yet.
Drift Road, would you, having a quorum issue, could you do the 29th?
Of what month?
August.
No,
2 weeks
Madam-
after the 15th.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
At the request of the applicant, we are gonna continue this to August 29th.
Second.
Are there any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
You're not in trouble yet, Mike.
No, we don't have you till, the end of the agenda?
Request for determination of applicability. Linda Spence, 97 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, for permission to install 2 stainless steel removable davit arms to support an inflatable Zodiac runabout boat on a seasonal basis.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant, as you said, would like to install metal davits. That's the end of the dock and the water depth, at the end of the pier. Staff went, has some concerns with this. I know on the face, it's just the davits to lower the Zodiac in, but the water depth in that area is very, there's not much
There's no
at low
water at low
tide.
tide.
There's no water at low tide. And although the applicant has stated that they'd be willing to restrict their usage from June to September, and only run it in high tide, that they only have about 20 horsepower motor on the end of the Zodiac, I just don't think that this is an appropriate area to have a motorized
20 horsepower?
boat at the end. And Mark had had some concerns with this as well. We went out, we checked the water depth again out there today, and there's just really nothing at the end. So at this point, we are recommending a +3 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, for Tommy and for the audience, a positive means, for an RDA, means that we're not allowing the activity now, but it doesn't mean that the applicant can't come back in under a notice of intent where we can condition something. Yes.
Madam
Tom.
Chair, do we know how much of a tide change is that?
In West Falmouth Harbor, 3.5 to 4 feet.
So
Right,
More or
Mark?
less.
I'm pretty,
conservatively, we could say he's got 3 foot on a high tide.
yes.
Okay. And Thank you.
Okay, so motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a positive determination. Now, for this vote, let me see, 1, 2, 3. Mike and Arthur, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Mike and Arthur, because you're alternates, and not the,
The mic was full.
Mike's not full.
No,
Tom is
Arthur-
full.
Arthur, Mike, and I are alternates.
And you're not the oldest, you're the
Senior.
longest serving, senior. Okay? So, okay, all in favor of,
Madam Chair, you get-
May I
Yes.
address, I'm the applicant's.
yes, you may.
Asking really to,
Sir, you have to tell us
Yes.
who you are.
my name is Varujan Hagopian. I'm a professional civil engineer, and I represent the applicant, and I've submitted full notice of intent for other aspects of this particular project. I don't really see why the need to really submit a full notice of intent, because this is an inflatable boat. It's going to be used very periodically, and the applicant agrees to restrict the use during the high tide. No one is going to lower the boat when there is no water underneath there, when there is a mud. We know there is the area, just the shellfish in the area. And they spending $10,000 to buy this boat. They just want to go out there and putter around in the harbor. It's a hard bottom boat. They don't want to paint it. And we figured many ways to really, in terms of what's the best way to get the applicant to go out there and enjoy the recreational aspects of the harbor, which is, it's their right to do that. And we came up with this request, which in our opinion is the least amount of impact on the entire area. The entire davit can be removed totally during the off-season, and it's all stainless steel. It's removable, can be taken out, and it supports a small boat. I don't know why we need to come back and then submit a full notice of intent for this request. It's a de minimis use.
Okay, are there any comments?
I'm not opposed to agreeing with you on that, but this is an RDA, and we do not have any ongoing conditions with it. That's one of the problems that we have. We can't condition. You can say, we're never gonna, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. But as a regulatory board, it's a great idea, it functions well, but that's today. And tomorrow, those things could change and we have no recourse other than an enforcement order. And that gets murky and cloudy. In the best interest of the person that's doing the application, it's in their best interest for the long term. If this is something that they truly want to enjoy and it's something they can promote and condition, the board should have no issue with a project that's presented as you have it here, but where we can put conditions and it goes on with the deed so that in perpetuity, all of a sudden there's an infraction. We have some way to be chasing it.
I understand.
Somebody else owns the
Yeah.
property.
If it changes hands, it's ongoing. It's not a bad thing that you're proposing, in my opinion. It does function. It's no different than if you just flop the kayak off and, if you're doing, no one's gonna be able to stop you from pulling a kayak.
Sure.
So I think that it's a good faith effort on the applicant, but there's a certain threshold that we have as a board to maintain.
Yeah. They were going to use the vehicle to bring it off and on the slopes, the existing slopes over there, without any permit, as a matter of right. I said, well, you shouldn't do that, because that could create problems at low tide and things, so I convinced them to go this way. So let me ask the question. We have two notice of intents. We've already filed on this, and it's just, they're still open. We haven't closed them. Do we file an amendment, or do we file a new one?
You
Could be an
could
amendment.
probably file an amendment.
Amendment would be fine on one of the
Yeah.
rough ones.
You have,
Yeah, in fact, that would be
Probably the
the most
easiest way.
appropriate,
Yeah.
since you
Okay.
do have open NOIs.
Sounds good.
Yeah, because one of them is related to a different issue, but the other one is related to the pier and the house.
Stone.
One of them
Right.
is related to the pier, they
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of overlap, but either, I think the one closest to the pier, I think the reconstruction of the pier.
Right.
That one is the most appropriate.
Yeah, and that could be part of the
A fine
reconstruction.
amendment
Can
on
I have
that.
those pictures back there?
Okay,
We have the
Well,
pictures.
thank you.
okay, are there any other questions? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again sometime soon, I guess. Judith Hoffler, 53 Paola Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to repair an existing culvert outfall, including the addition of a 12-inch layered and 6 to 12-inch modified stone. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Mark has reviewed the project, we've talked to the representative multiple times about this project, and we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question. Why is there an open outfall? George, is this the one you're here for?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
George Patel from George Patel Excavation. It was originally built a private road, and this is the low point of the road. This is the only means of drainage at this point, out to the wetland. 2 catch basins in the road.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a positive determination.
Negative.
No,
I
negative.
mean, excuse me, of a negative determination. I'm always glad to see that people are listening. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Sipawis Highlands Beach Trust, care of John Kelleher, Sipawis Road, map 36-06-00000A, West Falmouth, for permission to erect 2 kayak racks. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we went out to the site, we reviewed it with the applicant. Even though the area exists in the flood zone, we think it's appropriate to have the racks there. People are storing boats along the dune and the resource area there right now, to give them the ability to have some low racks close to the ground to place the boats on, I think is an appropriate course of action. Mark did have a discussion with them, I believe either today or yesterday, that says they would be agreeable to putting PVC sleeves in the ground, so that way the rack can be removed in
that's
the
great.
off-season and
Good.
not be here during the winter storm months. It's just, it's a better way to clean up that area down there. I think it's appropriate.
Good.
And it's a very low to-the-ground rack open, it's not a huge multi-tiered structure, just 2 racks, so. We're
Make a
recommending
motion.
-2.
I recommend the -2 as discussed.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Sally Mavor, 25 Barneck Road, West Falmouth.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant's representative is requesting a continuance till August 15th.
Oh,
So moved.
Second.
isn't Barneck Road
In Woods Hole.
Woods Hole?
Woods Hole, you're right.
That's why I hesitated. I would have just kept on rolling along with that, but. To June 15th? I mean,
You know what, when Mark advertised it, he was thinking Little Neck Bars Road.
August 15th?
Correct.
Okay, could we have a motion, please?
We did.
Did.
There's a motion and second on the table to continue this to August 15th. Are there any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Request for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Okay, first up, Paul Mazzaro, and 68 Eel River Road Realty Trust, 62 and 68 Eel River Road, East Falmouth, for permission to demolish the existing single-family house, guest house, garage, 2 sheds, and construct a new 5-bedroom, single-family house with attached garage, deck, stairs, patios, wall, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, fire pit, utilities, 4-foot wide boardwalk, dry wells, native tree and shrub mitigation plantings, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, before Mr. Burselli makes his presentation, we should all have in front of you, or what is in your package, an 11 by 17.
Yes.
Yes,
We have it. Thank you, Mike.
Came in today. I asked Mr. Borselli
It came
to
today?
provide that
It came in
yesterday.
today?
It did, it should be downstairs. We were supposed to put it up there for
This-
you, but.
Mike gave this information to us, but Jen asked him to clarify it.
Yeah,
And that's what, this is the
basically,
clarification.
a clarification of, just to clarify existing, you guys can share that one? Existing impervious surface versus proposed, that was it. It was just to clarify what they were using as existing impervious surface on the site. So that's why it came in today. I asked for it yesterday, so just a clarification for you guys, okay?
So we can't yell at you.
That's why we wanted to make sure before anybody was gonna yell at Mike, everybody understood that.
Yell at you.
Good evening, Mike.
Madam Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. I'm joined here tonight by Teresa Sprague from Blue Flags Design, and I'm also joined by the applicants, Paul and Barbara Nazaro, who are in the audience, very interested in the deliberations. The Nazaros recently acquired this property at 62 Eel River Road, and the property has an existing, has several existing structures on it, and it's a classic redevelopment project in accordance with your regulations at FWR 10.18. First, I'd like to point out the wetland resources within 100 feet of the proposed work. Those include land under the ocean, land under a salt pond. Then there is a small beach, some salt marsh, and a coastal bank, which is actually a previously approved timber bulkhead. And there is an order of conditions and a certificate of compliance for that work that's several years old. So the wetland resources are shown on the plan of existing conditions, sheet 1 of 3, and they're also shown on the proposed site plan, sheet 2 of 3. On the property today is the single-family dwelling on the north side of the property with an accompanying deck. Just south of that is an existing second dwelling guest house. Paved driveway, there's an existing gazebo, there's a detached garage and 2 sheds. There's a driveway system consisting of portions of paved, portions of gravel, and there's lawn areas in and around between the house, guest house, and the wetlands. There is actually surprisingly a fairly healthy undisturbed buffer on portions of this waterfront, and I'll speak more to that shortly. What the applicant's proposing to do is raise all of these structures and reconstruct one single-family dwelling with an attached garage and a new driveway. There's also, I didn't point out, an existing substandard septic system located between the 2 structures. It's less than the required separation from wetland resources, and it's certainly less than 5 feet to the groundwater table. What we're proposing to do, this is a blown-up scale for clarity, is to construct a new single-family dwelling and deck in a position on the property that meets all of your standards for redevelopment in a previously developed resource area buffer. First of all, the structure does not move any closer to any wetland resources. The existing deck on the existing house at its closest point is about just shy of 29 feet from the top of the coastal bank. When we met with the client and their architect, we described the standard within your regulations that says you cannot move closer than the present primary structure. So this structure was designed so that it is no closer, and at this one point on this new deck, it's 29 feet from the top of the coastal bank. The balance of the structure is built landward of that. Predominantly, the bulk of the new house is occupying an area where the existing house is, or where there's driveways, or where there's septic, or where there's an existing guest house. So the house will be sited in this location. There's a proposed driveway associated with it. If you look on the plan, you will see there's a no disturbance zone A from a salt marsh, and we've shown that on the plan in a green color. There's actually a no disturbance zone A to a coastal bank, which is 50 feet, which is not as restrictive, and then there's an outer buffer zone B to the coastal bank, which almost is identical to the 100-foot no disturbance zone A from the salt marsh. We performed the impervious surface calculations, which is the supplement that you received, the 11 by 17. We had performed those calculations and described them on the plan. When we initially submitted, we made a determination that the total impervious surfaces within the no disturbance zone A of the salt marsh currently is 3,965 square feet. And the 11 by 17 plans that you have show shaded in gray the areas that total to that number. We did the same exact thing with the proposed work, which again you have another 11 by 17, and that total area was determined to be 3,514 square feet. So there was actually, based on our calculations, a net decrease in impervious surface. That being said, we still recognize the importance of trying to improve things on the site, and one way that we can improve things on this site is try to enhance the existing buffers. So the applicant is proposing to still provide enhanced buffer native planting, which is shown in this other green color. Total of the two areas is 800 square feet. So we're still providing an additional 800 square feet of native plant material, and the specifics of that design are on the plan by Teresa Sprague, who will get into that detail shortly. To do this house construction and to do some of the improvements on the property, it does require us to cut some trees. If you look closely on the plan, you'll see that there's trees with very large X's through them. And you'll notice that there's no little X's anywhere on this plan to confuse anyone about the possibility of a tree incorrectly being cut down. So directly adjacent to the existing house, there's a tree here, and then there's two trees right next to each other directly adjacent to the existing house. In addition, there's some regrading proposed on the south side of the property, which will allow for a connection of the grading on the adjacent property that you've previously reviewed and approved by order of conditions. That would lend itself to both parties being able to have a consistent grade and not create a gully between the two properties that could have the potential for erosion. There's a couple of trees in this area that are within your jurisdiction that would have to be removed. We're proposing, with the trees that we're cutting, we're proposing, there's actually 7 trees to be cut, and we're proposing to give you back 16 trees to mitigate for that tree removal, in addition to the 800 square feet of, I guess what I call voluntary buffer enhancement of shrub layer planting. As I had said in the beginning, there's an existing substandard septic system, or septic systems, one serving the guest house, one serving the main house in this area. The new septic will be placed beyond your jurisdiction, well beyond your jurisdiction, in excess of 150 feet or 200 feet from the wetland resources. The driveway is shown here, the bulk of which is outside your jurisdiction. The actual limit of jurisdiction would be here, and that's proposed to be gravel. And we're proposing dry wells for roof runoff. We're proposing to remove the existing gazebo, and we're hopeful that we can build a fire pit in its place. And the final element we're proposing is an at-grade boardwalk, if you will, to link the dock to the house, just for continuity. With that, I'll turn it over to Teresa to go through the buffer plan, the planting plan, and we'll both be available for questions.
Thanks, Mike.
Good evening, everybody. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flags Design. I'll just quickly go over the existing conditions as far as it pertains to vegetation. As is true throughout this entire neighborhood, the canopy species predominantly oak and pitch pine, with oak on this particular site being the predominant canopy species. As is common with oak pitch pine communities, the understory is in naturally vegetated areas comprises a mix of black huckleberry, ferns, and sedges, with bayberry and rugosa rose along the shoreline. Outside of the buffer zone, rhododendrons make up the significant portion of the understory. There's a large area of low-growing junipers that are located just to the south of the dwelling, in front of the guest cottage. And that would be removed as part of this project. The existing vegetative buffer to the north of the dock is healthy and intact, comprising bayberry and rugosa rose. Here. This is that area here. The existing vegetated buffer to the south of the dock is also intact, but it's being quickly colonized by bittersweet vine and shrub honeysuckle, and there is some concern that if that's left, it will start to outcompete the existing native vegetation as well as any proposed native vegetation to be planted. So we would recommend in an approximately 700 square foot area to do very selective removal of invasive species, allow that area to naturally revegetate with the bayberry that's in there, unless there are large voids that are left by invasive species, and then we would plant those areas. The total existing vegetated buffer is about 3,800 square feet. So we're proposing to restore about enhance about 800 square feet of that by restoring 520 square feet of existing lawn to the south of the existing line, shown here, which gives us a couple of opportunities. One is to enhance the existing buffer at 62 Eel River Road, but it also allows us to make a connection to the buffer vegetation at 68 Eel River Road, so it allows us an opportunity to actually create some connectivity there. In addition to that, we'd also propose to restore about 280 square feet of the existing gravel drive area to the north of the existing proposed dwelling. The area to the south of the dwelling, we would propose to put 15 bayberry, 15 Virginia rose, 5 summer sweet, and 5 red chokeberry. And in the area to the north, we propose to do a mix of where it's a little shadier, high bush blueberry, arrowroot viburnum, and black huckleberry to match the existing vegetation in that area. In addition, as Mike pointed out, there are several trees that are going to have to be removed. At 62 Eel River Road, we're going to be removing 3 oak trees within the outer buffer zone B to the coastal bank and within the 100-foot A zone to the salt marsh, and 2 oaks within the outer buffer zone B to the coastal bank. And those are located, the 2 in the outer buffer zone are here, and then the 3 that are within the 100-foot to the salt marsh are in the area where the house will actually be constructed. We're proposing to then replant 12 trees at 62 Eel River Road to mitigate for the loss of those 5 trees. 4 trees in the A zone to the coastal bank, in the 50-foot buffer, 5 trees in the A zone to the salt marsh in the 100-foot buffer, and 3 trees in the outer buffer zone B. Those trees are proposed to be replanted at 3-inch caliper size. In addition to that, due to the grading that Mike just discussed, there are also going to be 2 trees removed at 68 Eel River Road. In order to mitigate for the loss of those 2 trees, we're proposing to replant 4 trees right up in this area here in the 50-foot outer buffer zone B to the coastal bank. Again, those trees are also be 3-inch caliper size. So in total, we're proposing to plant 7 red oaks, 3 white oaks, 1 black cherry, and 5 7 to 8 foot serviceberry and Analinkia canadensis as understory trees in this area here between the 2 properties, clump form preferred. So in addition to that, the existing gravel driveway to the north of the lot that's going to be removed will be replanted with a Falmouth-friendly lawn. That's this area up here in the buffer zone. And lawn will be restored here. So a couple of other things that I want to add about what we're proposing to do here that are sort of outside of what we're calling mitigation, but certainly part of how we're proposing to enhance the wildlife habitat value and the resource area and buffer zone, function of the resource area and buffer zone. Where the house is pulled back currently, we're just proposing to enhance that existing vegetation. I know that's less than 10 feet from the house and it may be considered foundation planting, but it will be native vegetation and will consist of bayberry, black huckleberry, and the existing vegetation that's found throughout this buffer zone. In addition, we have one more opportunity here that I'm actually pretty excited about, and that is this whole area that's shown in sort of this olive green color where we're going to be doing the tree planting. This will be planted with native shrubs and grasses, sedges, so on and so forth under here, and will give us an opportunity to connect to the mitigation area that's being planted at 68 Eel River Road that's shown in gray. So we'll actually have an opportunity to create this really large enhanced buffer zone right in here, in this entire area. So I think with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the planting or Mike about the constructions.
Thanks, Teresa. Mike?
I just wanted to add one thing. The additional planting that Teresa just referred to, technically we could be including that in our proposed buffer planting. We haven't really done that yet. We haven't quantified it. So the 800 square feet that we're offering is really significantly more than 8 feet if we count that. And technically we could count that. We just didn't quantify it yet. But I would say that you're probably approaching 12 to 1,500 square feet if you add that total.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mike. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, a couple of things. Mike already knows what I'm about to say. If you look at the corner where the little octagon type house is, the staff does have concerns with the proximity of that to the limit of work. This board has heard me state on multiple occasions I do not like to see limits of work, 5 feet or less. I understand that this is only gonna be a 4-foot cross wall, but if you went under that deck and looked up to the drip line of the oak and the other trees that limit of work is resting right against, that excavator is gonna go right through that root system. I know oaks are a bit more hardy, but I think there is an opportunity here, since the most landward corner of the house, the distance between that to Fall River Road is 160 feet. There is an opportunity to pull this house back at least, 5 feet. It gives the contractors room to work. If you looked across 268 Mill River, and notice the limit of work, everything behind that house within that limit of work is like completely, it's a construction site. You've got to give these guys room to work. I do not think that these tight limits of work are appropriate, especially on a site where you have the opportunity to pull it back and give the contractors more room and not damage the vegetation in the naturally vegetated buffer to Zone A. That said, Mike, do you think that the wattles are enough to hold back any sedimentation and erosion when you start ripping that site apart? You have wattles on your plans,
Right.
so.
Yeah, I really do think, because of the topography, it's very flat, and any of the significant regrading is further up on the site, that, and the bulk of the work is really the structure itself, that the wattles would be appropriate. But if the commission does not feel that that is enough protection, we're happy to go to straw bales, and even silt fence backing straw bales.
Okay.
We thought it was reasonable.
Well, I still would like to see that house move back. And I just think it's just too tight in that area. I know that you provided photos, and I'll put those in the file. Mike gave us some photos. Copies of your photos, Mike, that you sent me today?
Yeah, I have a copy here.
Here. Now, when you said this was on the Johnson site,
Yes.
why is this fence there?
Well, if I could, Madam Chairman,
Here you go, guys.
every now and then we have a discussion about the appropriateness of working close to limits of work. And generally, you like to see 10 feet from the limit of work. In fact, the photos that I guess you have a copy of that I have up on this board, we had that same exact discussion. And on that other project, just like this project, I made the point of saying that there was only a very limited portion of the new structure that was near the limit of work. And that very limited portion of the structure was supported by a frost wall foundation, which is only 3 to 4 feet to the footing. So when we had that discussion, and there were still concerns, we proposed a means to make you feel more comfortable building a house in close proximity to a limit of work. And the idea was to install temporarily in those very tight areas some sections of stockade fence instead of hay bales, so that there was no question that you could not go, you physically couldn't go past the stockade fence. And there was actually hay bales on the other side of that stockade fence. And there's no way anyone could try to do work, stage, clear, do anything because the stockade fence was there. The photo also, so that's why the stockade fence was put in. It was actually the limit of work in that one section. The photos also show, if you look, you can see the foundation, you can even see the waterproofing on the foundation, the footing, and the excavated side slope, and you can see how that soil, which is similar geology to this site, stayed in place, and there was no concern. You can even see there were some shallow roots right at the surface. Same type of trees were on this site. There was some scrub oaks and some pines. They have tap roots, and Teresa could speak more to that. The trees are in the background, and I've been to the site and reviewed it for compliance, and there doesn't seem to be any concern with the trees. So the reason the fence is there is that's the limit of work, and we had submitted the photos just to demonstrate to you that in limited areas, it's possible to work that close. I'd also like to point out that there is an existing deck there now, right up to the limit of work. We tried to move away from the vegetation. I suppose we could have asked for permission to rebuild that deck in the same position, but to try to move back some, we decided to shift the house back. Now, when we talked about the 5-foot shift on the phone yesterday, we did an analysis. We really looked at, we moved the house on the computer 5 feet back, and we went to the site. And believe it or not, it does affect the view. The view from these areas, this part of the house was designed to take advantage of the view. That's this direction. And the trees that exist down there have canopies that are right at in the sight line of views in that direction. And the canopies are relatively big. There's a whole section of the house that, because it's behind the canopy, won't have a view. But to shift this house back 5 more feet does impact the view. So we thought that when you're balancing the added benefit and value to the applicant for the view against the very limited potential for impact for basically just this little section of the octagon. That's problematic. Within 5 feet of the limit of work. Keeping in mind that we've done on other projects, that it was appropriate and it was reasonable to keep the house in that position. So that's why we did that.
Okay, well, we'll,
Madam Chairman, the project out on Seaford Road did not have 160 feet. There was a much tighter site.
yeah, but we'll just wait and see what
Okay.
various
I
board
mean,
members have to say.
3 trees in the line of review, the property is spectacular. I really wonder when, how many times I have to say in a public session that 4-foot limit of works are not appropriate, given the number of sites I've been on. That said, Mike, your clients are aware that there will be no irrigation?
There'll be
for the
no
lawn?
permanent underground irrigation.
No
only
underground
temporary.
permanent
Yep.
irrigation. They are aware that float on the dock is not permitted.
We looked at the licenses, and we agree with you that the float does not show up on the license.
The
We're-
float needs to go
Right, we're looking into what needs to be done to either
immediately.
legally permit it or take steps to make the structure consistent with the license. So we're aware of it, and we're working on that.
I really, working with this board for 7 years, don't think that float is going to be permitted. I'm going out on a limb here, the board I work with every week, so I would look at removing that sooner rather than later. And Teresa, I have a couple of questions for Teresa. Thanks, Mike.
Don't go away, Mike, I think we'll need you again.
Teresa?
Yeah.
In your summary of the vegetative, and I understand that your clients, both your clients are going to be melding their sites
Yes.
to create a natural habitat. That's really great. I think that's a vast improvement. You got one house that's really high up. You got to take care of that area somehow between those 2 lots.
Yep.
that's a benefit absolutely to the environment, but it's also an elective thing to do.
Exactly. Yep.
So, when you were giving your presentation, you said something about clump form preferred?
Well, the Amelanchier canadensis as an understory tree, I personally prefer the clump form, where we're talking about 3 or 4 stems growing. Those trees will still reach 20 feet tall underneath the oak canopy, and they'll do very well there. If the board prefers trees, then I'll absolutely happy to go with trees. It's just a personal preference of mine to use with Amelanchier.
I know a couple of commissioners have an issue with removing natural vegetation within Zone A of a salt marsh, removing that natural vegetation in Zone A at all. And I believe we had this discussion on the project that Mike just gave us an example of, a seed pit with removing trees in Zone A to a salt marsh. So that's something they're going to need to consider. But why is that 12-inch oak being removed right on the property boundary between the two sites?
Here?
I see the grade on the 12 feet, so why does that oak have to go? If it's about 10 feet away, do you think it's going to be impacted?
5 feet of fill.
If, I mean,
I think by bringing that grade, maybe Mike can show you.
5 feet of
because I
fill.
don't have the
It's
entire,
5 feet of fill.
5
Yeah.
sorry.
topography on my plan, but that grade is being brought into to 12 feet. Yeah, so there's going to be about 4 feet of fill in that area. So that 12-foot contour is somewhere back here, so this is sort of being leveled out to the 12 feet. So that tree is in your jurisdiction, and it will have to be removed
Along with all of
in
these
order for
trees.
that grading to be done.
Okay, and on the north side, where you have the proposed red cedars, red oaks, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the black oak blueberry and the high bush blueberry?
Yeah.
That area's already vegetated though, isn't it?
I think Mike and I were just discussing that, and I think that there is a little bit of a discrepancy on the plan. The area that's being proposed to be planted is the gravel area, right at the end of the existing gravel driveway. I can show you this picture here. Shows this area. This is the existing gravel driveway.
So it's right at the end of that?
It's right at the end of that gravel
Okay,
driveway.
can you kind of clarify that on the
We
plan?
can.
Because where I was the other day underneath that
Yeah.
deck, to the side is kind of vegetated. So
It
if that
is.
could just be detailed out, I think it would go a long way into
Yep, we can do that.
alleviating some of the concerns some of the board members mentioned to me this afternoon about planting in naturally vegetated
Absolutely.
areas. Do you know how they do that?
I do, and I completely understand, and I agree 100%, and so that gravel
Okay,
area is just
no,
around the
that's
driveway, and
great,
where
I
it
appreciate
is.
that.
Okay.
So clump form, wire remove, wattles, we might discuss that. Vegetation, okay. I'm good, right now.
Okay.
Are you done?
I have one, Sea Pit Road, was it 16? 16, the pictures that you showed us. Was that 16, something like, I forget the.
It was actually 16 clay.
Clay, was it? Yeah, it was clay pond, but it was out.
I'd have to get you.
Yeah, I
I'm
know
not,
where it was.
my memory's failing me on the actual address.
I think I'm blending 2 projects in my head right now. I see a lot of them. Thanks, Mike.
Mhm.
Thanks, Teresa.
Who had this one? Michelle. Well, Michelle,
Hi.
how about if you go first?
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Haven't seen you for a month.
I think Jen covered a lot of it for sure. I think I'll start with the erosion control, the wattles. I think that a wattle is appropriate here. I would recommend, since it is so tight, to do something more like a compost sock, because the straw wattles can get crushed pretty easily, and if you're doing a lot of work right close to it, the compost socks hold their form a little bit better.
I'm familiar with that, so.
It's very similar, it's just filled with compost. And you can actually then just cut them open and use the compost on site if you want, instead of dragging them off. They're, because they hold their form better and they are compost, they tend to work better and remove sediment better. So they're pretty easy to work with. And then I think that you could use even orange construction fencing with that if you want, rather than the stockade fence or something like that that does give it the height, assuming we do go with the tight limit of work. But the compost sack would do a pretty good job there, I think. I guess my only kind of question, concern about the site is over in the area where the fill is occurring. And I understand that it's a neighbor thing where you don't want the runoff from one site going on to the other. Is that what that's being done for?
Well, it's that, and we don't want to create sort of a gully in between that would focus the runoff.
Well, there is kind of an
concentrate it.
existing,
I was gonna say, there's an existing
Right.
gully.
Right,
Right.
and we're trying to eliminate that and make this better. That was the concept.
is there a problem with the existing gully that,
No, there isn't, but we're concerned because the other house is under construction. And if you've looked at the side of their property, and it was known at the time and shown on the plans that way, that there would be a relatively steep slope drop-off. In fact, we met with Jenna a few weeks ago to talk about it before we had even advanced this plan too far. And if we had that situation on this property, and then we created over here and had a similar situation, it could be a problem. It also isn't the most aesthetic situation, so we thought it would be a good solution to kind of blend them together and then plant the area with more native plantings.
could make a very aesthetic dry creek bed in that area. I bring it up because obviously we're talking about 6 feet of fill in one location, and I assume that that's going to affect not only the trees you've shown being cut within our jurisdiction, but all of those trees for quite a ways back from there.
Some of the trees further back outside your jurisdiction.
Right, I mean, there's a 13-inch right on the line, 10-inch double. I mean, there's a lot of large trees in there that are gonna be affected by this filling to take care of something that's not necessarily a problem.
And how much fill are we talking about?
There's, with the cubic yards.
How much fill are you planning
I
to
have to
bring
get you
on?
that number, I don't know the answer.
Okay, I would like to see a more detailed sort of blow-up of the area, what the topography looks like now, and what you anticipate it's gonna look like. You go ahead and fill it all in. And then the calculation.
Yeah, I guess that was pretty much my concern for the site, that perhaps a swale of some sort could be done there in a very nice way with native plantings and maybe some stone and boulder versus filling it in this way and affecting so many trees. So, that's it for me.
Okay. Thanks. Court?
You gotten this plan to the point where there's elevations on this house? I mean, that would be helpful for me to understand what some of the implications of this very tight limit of work are. And
think we do.
having been a contractor in the past, and having worked in very tight limits of work, and you have a lot of different subcontractors. Some aren't as careful as others. This tight limit of work can be problematic. Particularly when you get roofers up there and all their staging, and sidewallers, and people trying to put the windows in, and you're working 2 stories in the air. That 5-foot limit of work is tough. And I can almost guarantee it'll get violated.
Madam Chairman, if I could speak to that? With all due respect to Mr. Bird, we could rewind back to that other project, and we almost verbatim talked about that. That's why we did what we did on the other project with the
No,
stockade.
I saw your pictures, and looking at those pictures, I can see the potential for issues there too. Okay, so that's my point.
I think Courtney would like to have.
Now, one other
Would you
question.
like to have, sort of have a view of what's gonna be?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I
I want to understand what I'm looking
Okay.
here. We're seeing a plan on the ground that's one-dimensional.
Right.
If this is 2 stories in the air, then, I may be inclined to go along with what Jen's suggesting, that maybe the house has to be pulled back a little bit. Maybe not 5 feet, but enough so that you've got an adequate work limit here. So that's one point. The second thing is, you show a patio here. You show your nearest point is 29 feet. But then you have a patio in front of that, which, I don't have a scale, but I'm going to guess it's 27 feet, 26 feet. That's all right. I know by eye it's closer. I used a pencil to measure the difference,
26.
so I don't need a scale. Now, my point is, first of all, on that patio that extends, the way you're showing it says, essentially this is under the decks, right? The patio? That's what you're telling me, that's what you're saying.
Except for this one sort of walkway in front of it, right there, the dark gray.
What's the height of the deck from the patio?
That deck is a full story above.
Okay, so what would be and what's the patio made out of?
We haven't really determined the material, but it's likely to be something like dry laid bluestone on a.
Okay, so it's in effect impervious surface. So my question is, why couldn't that patio be pulled back into the deck line?
It could be.
That way you're keeping that 29-foot, then the 29 feet of impervious surface and house and all of that is truly 29 feet, not 27 or 6, or whatever.
Well, if I could answer that, Madam Chairman, it could be, there's no question. But we went by your regulations, and your regulations don't say impervious surfaces can't move closer.
Yeah.
It says structure. The structure can't move closer. So,
We have denied in-ground patios that are moved closer to the resource area in the past, so I'm being quite consistent, Mike.
I know, I'm just telling you, and maybe
I understand,
others on the board.
and I'm just saying, to me, it isn't that big a deal to pull it back,
It isn't,
and
it isn't.
then nobody has a heart attack.
I think you're talking about basically clipping off that corner there, is that right? Right there?
I'm just saying, pull it back under the deck, and then it's fine.
Right. You're saying don't go closer to the wetland resource with the patio?
I said, pull it back under the deck.
That's what he's saying, Mike.
I just wanna, my sentence was, pull it back under the deck.
Accessory
Okay.
structures,
I have no other questions.
may be modified, but the amount of impervious surface can't be.
Madam
increased.
Chairman, I have a quick clarification to ask Mike.
Yeah.
Before you go on. Mike, if you look at the thing you gave us, I just have a quick question on the design. What's that little area in the wall that you have green? When you gave us this, like, the proposed impervious surface,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little retaining wall and you have it green, is that gonna be lawn in there? I'm just trying to visualize.
I'm trying to
Do you
visualize
see,
what you're describing.
next to the little square patio near the driveway?
Left corner.
Okay, now go right down into the retaining wall?
This,
Yeah, what's inside that?
that would be, I believe that's a garden, planting area?
Okay, you didn't count it as an impervious surface, you had it called out, so I was just curious on what it was.
Courtney,
No, I'm all done.
you're all done?
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a very fine point that you
I'm good, thanks.
point out. Oh, you're done even quicker. And you're done. Tom?
Glad to see, walking on the activity next door, introduced myself and scared the people next door, told them I was from Concom. The site actually wasn't bad. To reorganize this and redevelop it, I think this is, boy, I'd like to do that. There's just so much, everywhere you look behind or through through a shrub, there was a shed. And redeveloping it, I could see this in the view and all that. I think there was a lot of forethought in this. I'm not even gonna say the cantilever word, because I don't want to.
You just did.
I know. The limit of work, I do have to agree, even though the stockade fence, I'd hate you if I had to work around that stockade fence. I really wouldn't. And nothing's worse than having ugly employees around the limit of work. Production dies. Okay, sometimes the lesser of two evils, the production of and quality of a product as opposed to the attitude of a tight limit of work. But I also have an understanding of your vistas. There may be a way to accomplish a vista pruning program, so that if you do pull that back, you could have a vista window that might be even more appropriate. I don't know what the architecture of the house is, but if you do bring that back, there may be ways to make windows, which you are allowed to do, for vista viewing. Just a thought. There is a lot of fill gonna go between the two lots. I do like how it's nice to have good neighbors and massage things together, and I think that's gonna create, as was discussed, a better buffer in the longevity of things. No real other sticking points. Nice to see all that. There is gonna be a ton of activity on this south side, like getting all the asphalt and pavement and happy crap out of there. It's gonna be interesting to see. But when you're done, I really think that condensing this, and I've made mention of this in the past, the function of a house and where you create activities, like the decks here, and they're focused towards the walkway, that just sometimes is not random. That's when I say about forethought. The existing structures, very random. People did these things and that's what they thought. We'll put the guest over there, we'll do this, we'll do that. When you have a project like this where you're condensing things, you're putting things away from the resource, you're focusing, it's no longer all over the yard to park cars and boat trailers and dragging one thing from another place. You're focusing that and fine-tuning it. That's why I really am excited about redevelopment projects, because this is what we're gonna see more of. And I think that there's a very big positive part of this. I think that the limit of work is one little glitch that is not insurmountable. I think there's a reasonable solution to that. That's it.
Okay, I have a quick thing, Mike, and that, I imagine that you plan to still have the steps to the beach that go off the top, by where the dock goes out, but they're not on that plan, that's the problem.
The steps here?
Yeah,
They're on
To
your
the
first
north of
sheet,
that.
not
they're on
on
the
your
first
second
sheet and not on the second sheet. So I think you probably want them on the second
Yes.
sheet. And I have two other quick comments. One is, I agree with Tom that once this plan is, I'd like you to rethink the regrading, but once the new buffer is established, it's going to be more protective than presently exists. But as you know, I'm the person who feels strongly about removing vegetation in the A zone. And I know and I understand, and we've permitted this, and I'm not saying that this is a sticking point with this, but removing all that juniper shrub, there's a tremendous root area there that's gonna be gone. And so it's not as if you're sort of just giving us this other vegetation, sort of out of the good of your heart. There is there is a match to what's being taken out of the system. And instead of trying to figure out what that match is, I think we can probably live with, I can live with what you've proposed.
Mhm.
But I just didn't
I
want you to think.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
okay.
understand what you're saying.
And that was it. Everybody's asked the other questions that I had for it.
Mike, how old is that deck? The one that's, you're using as your distance, closest distance to the resource?
I have no idea. It's as old as the house, I would think. Doesn't seem like it's new. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Well, I just know that a lot of these projects, you know, I'm looking at the old house and the deck, and a lot of things grow. The gazebos just appear without permits, and decks appear when you need a bigger family to have chairs and things. So I'd like to just, if there were any aerials available, just to know what the life of that deck is, because it would make a big difference on this project to know if it was not there and not permitted, then it'll bring this project further back as we would probably like to see. But that I would like, and then, not that it's as much on the house, but Jen, you were talking about the float wasn't permitted. How about all the pilings? There are like 7 or 8 pilings. Oh,
Can I answer that, Madam Chair?
Yes. If you can answer it, you may answer it.
With the applicant, we looked at the license that exists and we compared it to what's on the ground. I can't recall, but there's some pilings that weren't on the license. There's some pilings in the ground that aren't on the license.
I think your license has 4, Mike.
And
So
there's-
you have
and
2 to the north and 2 to the south.
So I can find out that answer, I just don't remember, but I know that I noticed some pilings installed that aren't on the license plan. I'll have to get you the answer.
yeah, we're
I
gonna
also-
need to know what was licensed,
Yeah.
and I just clarify that. And the reason is, again, you know, a deck can be on, you know, sort of the precedent that the float, the pilings were just put in without a permit, makes me question the gazebo and the deck. So if that's the case, it could be a consistent pattern, and I'd just like to know if the deck and the gazebo, which are the closest things currently to the resource, are permitted, because again, it will change the whole dynamics of the project.
And Mike, can you just identify which ones are licensed the next time it
Put a
comes?
license number next to each, you know, like you did on the dock, you
It'll
put
be very
existing
clear
pier
what's
license.
licensed.
Okay.
so.
Yeah, and maybe even enclose the old license in the permit.
I think
Was
that
it
is in
there?
your file.
Oh, probably, it's probably in the file.
I have the license. right
Okay, I
here.
don't need it.
It was an
You've got it.
attachment.
And then
Yeah. That's my question. Thank you.
the other question I had, Mike, was how, the limit of work as you show it now doesn't protect any of the trees to the north. It actually doesn't protect a lot of the trees that are in the A buffer zone to the Salt Marsh. And I just would like to see maybe some kind of, you know, the limit of work, it could just be orange fencing or something, you know, and not the mulch wattle, both north and south. Both sides are sort of vulnerable. And there are a lot of trees within that area, and we know in the past that whenever they're not stated to, stated to be protected, it's fair game inside the limit of work. So I just want to make sure that they're protected. The ones that you're proposing to remove will be marked, and the ones that aren't to be removed are somehow protected with construction fencing or snow fencing with 2x4s or something to.
Clearly identified as
Yeah,
to stay.
so they don't get piled dirt on or backed over and all that nice stuff that happens on a big project like this. And I think the stairs you already did, the float, bulkhead, deck, gazebo, and 37-inch calipers being removed in the A buffer, am I right? And you're proposing 38 back?
114 to be removed.
Okay. Total, in the A buffer?
I'm assuming so.
Okay.
I don't know, it's in the calcs on the
Okay,
right.
thank you. And you're proposing 37 inches?
48.
48. I guess I counted wrong. Okay, I'll have to look over that one again. Okay, I don't, thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
For now, you can come back to anyone, but next, we'll go to Ed.
Yeah, well, I think most of the issues have been already covered. I just have one. It does relate to the pilings that Maury mentioned, and yes, we need information on what is permitted and what is not permitted. And I would just like to let you know, Mr. Borselli, that when we discuss this project and deliberate on it prior to a vote, I will be proposing a condition that says that no new work can begin anywhere on this property until it's brought into compliance, and that is to say that any unpermitted pilings would have to be removed before any work starts. I'm just letting you know that, because if you're depending upon your timing or your schedule, there's nothing to stop you from moving post haste to bring the project into compliance. You might want to think about removing anything that's not permitted as soon as possible.
But he has to get permission to remove them also.
If it's a condition.
Well, if it's a condition,
Right.
right.
I just want
I'm
to
just-
give them an opportunity to anticipate this possibility.
Okay, Mike?
It's all been said.
Well, Tommy might have something to add.
They've been answered, thank you.
Nice to meet you, by the way.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I think we need a continuance. I
Really?
think you need a continuance. I'm
Oh,
suggesting,
because we don't have the DEP file number with you.
Actually, you got it at 5:30 this afternoon.
Oh, we did?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We came in at
So we really don't need a continuance.
All right.
well, you
That's yours.
can leave it to our,
I would like to ask for one, but your soonest,
Madam Chairman, point of order, you're going to ask for any comments from them.
Mike, I know. I know you're not usually here except if it's your own project, but I ask for comments after we have a motion on the table. So I will get.
Every hearing, Mike.
I will get to you, Mike. I haven't forgotten that you're here. Mike, you would like the soonest possible.
well,
Is that what I'm hearing?
yes, but I know you're not meeting,
We're not meeting the first, it would be the 15th of August,
right?
because the 8th, you guys, we just booked on the 8th, and we're not meeting the first, so we have the 15th of August, and then the next one, Mike, would be the 29th. I know Teresa has to look at the grading, and Dave has to look at the grading. The architectural's done, because I think that's what Courtney was looking for.
We have elevations.
You have the architecturals, okay. So would the 15th work for you, Mike? That gives you,
It will have to work.
and that gives you 1, 2, 3, that's like a month, yeah.
At the
That's 3
request of,
weeks, I think.
Hang on.
15th of August is 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
at the request of the applicant, I move that we continue this hearing to August 15th.
Second.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick clarification. I agree with Tom that this project has a lot to recommend itself on it. And I think the biggest sticking point perhaps is the limited work issue. And I think there's a way to make that work and not, I'm sensitive to the view corridors and all of that. And so maybe it's not 5 feet, maybe it's 2 feet, maybe it's a tweak here or a tweak there. But, that's not a huge thing.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Good evening, my name is Mike McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and a registered professional surveyor. I've been engaged by Mr. Pavlin to review the plans and the notes of intent. I have a written letter I'd like to distribute to the board.
If they're not enough, we can share here. You have one more, or you need it?
I was going to give it to Mr. Bishop.
Oh, okay.
The first thing is the boundary of the floodplain is not correctly shown on the plan. If you turn to, I have given you a 4-page letter. If you turn to page 3, This is a site-specific photograph. Number 58 is my client's land, and you can see underneath the heavy texture, the existing house on 62 Eel River Road. If you look, the heavy black line is the floodplain. The floodplain is in that location, 814 elevation 12. There is a V, or that shape in the boundaries, and that's immediately in front of my client's land. There's a V shape on this boundary, on this plan, but the V is on the other side of the house is 62 Eel River Road, and for some reason, majority of the low valley has been designated on the site plan as floodplain zone B, which is not a special flood hazard area. However, it is a special flood hazard area. And on page 4 is a blow-up of, is a more area-wide map. And what we've done here is we've taken the flood insurance rate map that's in force and effect, and we've overlaid it on the 2009 aerial photographs of the Mass GIS. And the reason I give you that is we've clearly demonstrating that the water lines overlay within an acceptable tolerance. So what that means is that there is a significant amount of resource that's not been shown on the plan, and there is a significant amount of resource that is not being protected, land subject to coastal storm flowage. We don't think it meets the performance standards of FWI 10.3A. There is also, because the floodplain extends much further, there are areas that we believe are coastal banks based on the distances between the two foot contours. I name in a letter the couple of places that there are apparently coastal banks. They are fragmented coastal banks. They may not be connected, but it's not for an engineer to determine that. That's for you to determine whether or not those coastal banks are significant. At the little shed, I believe there's 5 foot of fill, and the notice of intent doesn't describe the notice of the proposed fill. The volume and the impact should be described. There also should be a more detailed erosion control plan. There's a new coastal bank shown on the plan. It says that there's 7 trees on the plan with X bloom. There's 5 trees described on the notice, but there's over 30 trees that are going to be destroyed that are in your jurisdiction. This plan identifies property boundaries and topographic features and details, and it fails to have the stamp of a registered professional land surveyor. This needs to have a professional land surveyor stamp or a description of what plan it's taken from. The location of floodplain is, as it is incorrectly shown, illustrates how important it is to have a registered professional land surveyor prepare the work. Based on our preliminary review, this application is incomplete, and because it does not identify nor address all wetland resource areas, buffer setbacks, and performance standards of the regulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Madam Chairman, I have one quick question from Mr. Borselli before we go on. Mike, the proposed chain link fence around your garage, what is that?
What did you say?
Yeah, and does it wrap around and go to the little octagon area that I have concern with? Is that what that does?
It goes from here over to here.
And then goes down, okay.
It's to keep dogs
Oh, okay.
in control.
I was getting it blended in with the limit of work, so I just wanted a clarification where that stopped. Thank you.
Mike, do you have a copy of Mike's letter? Okay.
Just got it.
Okay, so when you come back, you'll be prepared to discuss those points as well? Okay, any other questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none? Oh,
I'd
sir,
like to say something.
Sir.
I'm a butter.
sir, you may say something.
Okay. I hope you understand my slang. I can't hear you well, but you will hear me.
Well, I'll speak a little louder, but you know, we need to hear your name, though.
James Pavlin,
Thank you.
and I am a butter to this property. Now, I like to give you a little history going back 50 years, if you don't mind. Because I was having a house next to that, and this lot was empty. It was a beautiful sandy beach where this building stays now. It was paradise. And I heard tonight some very good saleswomen and salespeople who are going to build bigger paradise. The paradise is gone. And now we have problem. And will be bigger problem and bigger problem until you solve it finally. We had crabs, we had eels, we had quahog, we had shellfish. It's all gone. Yes, I was young then, and I didn't know much about I should take action then. Besides, the man who built the house was a judge, so I didn't have much chances probably. But the same thing seems to be going on and on. I understand grandfather clock, but that's bigger than grandfather clock. I can see it right away. So anyway, I just want you to know a little history. The paradise is gone. Yeah. I mean, we are all for progress. Don't take me wrong. It has to be a good progress. I don't know. Be careful. Very careful. Because everybody's trying to outsmart the other one. So, well, anyway, thank you for listening to me.
Yes, thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Yes? Yes, you have to come up and you have to tell us who you are. That's the penalty paid for making comments in this room.
Hi, my name is Barbara Nazaro, and I'm with my husband Paul tonight. We're the applicants. And I'm not prepared, really I was not prepared for Mr. Pavlin's comments, but I can tell that he's concerned, and I just want to say that I can understand his concerns, and I can only assure you that it's not going to be paradise the way it was 50 years ago, but I can assure you that it will be beautiful. Our plan is to make it as lovely as possible. We love the Cape. We'll bring crabs back and keep the shellfish and do whatever we can. And that's one of the reasons why we have Teresa and Mike working with us, is to make it and bring it back to as close to its original beauty as it was then. I think our plan to...
Another paradise.
Well...
No, I have no reason.
I feel for his concern, and
I think he understands that you're trying, that you're trying to make it as...
We're not going to build a skyscraper. We're not, I mean, we want to keep it quaint. We want to keep it Cape Cod. We want gray cedar siding. I mean, I just want the whole, to be very quaint, and it really is going to be, if the board gives us.
Why don't you just use the house as is?
We have young children. I have 17-year-old twins. They have friends. We have family. There's 2 bedrooms, and the walls don't even go up to the ceiling. That's all I can say. I feel for him. I'm concerned that he's concerned. We haven't had the opportunity to meet before, but I can just, all I can say is I assure you.
I have absolutely nothing against you.
I know.
I never knew, but here is environment, here is a nature, and this is conservation committee who try to preserve the nature, and nobody can replace that.
I understand. I don't want to keep anybody anymore. Looks like there's other people that have to say things, so that's all I have to say.
Now,
Thank you.
we
for your time.
appreciate it, and
Thank you.
And I'm glad you've met, and I hope this is the beginning of a long friendship.
Yeah, there you go.
Amen.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table, right, Susan?
Right.
Okay, we're gonna take the vote. All in favor of a continuance to
August 15th.
August 15th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Continued, what?
I'm just wondering if you understood what we just voted on. Did you understand what we just voted on is a continuance? It's gonna come back.
Come visit us
Yes.
again. Come visit us again on August 29th.
15th.
Okay.
15.
Oh, come visit us again. Well, you can come on the 29th too, but August 15th.
No, the abutter notification goes out on the first one. The continuance it's on you now to come back.
Oh,
They won't
okay.
notify you ahead of
All
time.
right,
Yeah, but it's August 15th.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Michael.
Okay. Ellen Clements, 259 Lakeshore Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to raise RAZE, the existing dwelling, and construct a new single-family house with covered porch decks with stepped landscape walls, landing and stairs, to install a new Title V sewage disposal system, utilities, dry wells, native mitigation planning, grade modifications in the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Do you want the quorum?
I'm gonna say good evening to Matt. We'll get the quorum.
Mike, Lori, Betsy, Tom, Ed, and Courtney. Madam Chairman, this came back to you for a couple of things. I wanted to see a revise in the area of mitigation. Mr. Costa submitted the plan last week. After he submitted the plan, I went down to the site with the property owner. I was horribly late for this meeting, I felt so bad, but anyway. We looked at the plan and we decided on an area, and it's pretty much where Matt has it shown on the plan, so I'm okay with that. Prior to mitigation comments, I'll just ask that I review the site with you one more time, so your contractors know exactly where we decided to put that, so I was fine with that. And I had asked for BBW sheets for the wetlands. Those were provided. Just one note on that, Matt, next time don't provide me BBW sheets that were done in 2007. Okay?
Still in the same place.
Well, they can move, so never again, okay? No, I didn't say yes, Jennifer. Because I won't accept them next time. But this was
Could be a difference if it's
Yep.
drought, 5 years of drought, or 5 years of rain.
Absolutely different. So, thank you, non-agreement. That is,
Matt, do you want to add anything, or should we close this hearing?
You can close it.
I make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Matt. Don't leave.
don't go far, Matt.
Joseph Melnick, 167 Great Bay Street, East Falmouth, for permission to raise RAZE, the existing dwelling, construct a single-family house with attached garage, walkway, patio, driveway expansion, to install dry wells, utilities, native mitigation plantings, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. And the quorum is,
Same one.
okay?
In this case, this is the area where the plantings are going in the town right of way along
Great Bay.
Great Bay Street, so I was gonna say Bay Road, I'm getting on Bay Road, Bayside, and everything mixed up today. Matt submitted a plan that shows them within your jurisdiction on his client's property, outside of the,
Layout.
Great Bay Street, so I'm happy with that.
And Matt showed the trees that were on
Yeah.
the property line there.
Yes, they were actually on the neighbors' properties.
Yeah, I thought they were right along the property line, yeah.
So, remove that.
Matt, do you want to say anything, or should we close this hearing and take it
Oh,
under
I
advisement?
have one quick question, Matt, do you know if your client's gonna wanna put plantings between those and the road, or are they just gonna leave it along there?
I don't know.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Any questions on the board?
I just had one question, Jen, and you are okay with the long strip along the border instead of a dense
Yeah,
bump? Okay.
I don't have a problem, there's
Yeah.
a street between here, this is a nice area under the trees for wildlife.
The thing is, we're just having such a problem along that
Yeah.
road with people's
That's all.
engagement plantings.
My shoulders
Because the bank vegetation on the other side is overgrowing. People are making wider turns.
Okay.
We had some
That's all.
complaints that somebody's sprinkler system, which happens to be in the town road layout, was getting damaged.
Well, shame on them. Okay, motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement, right, Susan? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay. Daryl and Janice Cugini, 35 Charles River Road, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a fixed pier consisting of a 4-foot by 20-foot walkway, 3-foot by 16-foot ramp, 6-foot by 16-foot terminal float, install 4 10-inch pilings, 4 12-inch pilings, a boat lift, underground water and electric service to the dock, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam. Susan's keeping me in line over here.
Good job.
Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, and Ed.
Mike, Maureen, Betsy, Tom, Ed. Do you have anything else, or should we let Mike say something?
Only that you received a revised plan that shows a fixed pier
T-section.
instead of the,
I see. Float, which was too close to the bottom. Mike, want to add anything?
The only other thing we did was we showed a realignment of the proposed utilities, so they went through the break in the landscape buffer.
Right.
That was it.
What about the plantings, Madam Chairman? You had a concern with the plantings at the last one?
I think the concern was the utilities were going through the
Oh,
buffer.
okay,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah, that's why the line.
Okay, so we adjusted that, so you're good, you went to a fixed pier with the water depth, staff had a concern with
Okay,
the-
I'll take a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
I make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Good job.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Are there any further questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to close this hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, good evening. Okay, Walter Platt, 26 Ridge Road is continued to August 29th. Request to amend the existing order of conditions. 120 Racing Beach Trust, care of Edward Gordon, 120 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Request to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP number 253437, to reduce the patio footprint, install a retaining wall and steps, install additional mitigation plantings, add additional fill, modify stream plantings, install a secondary limit of work, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen, do we have a quorum on this? No, this is a new open.
This is a new amended.
Right,
Madam Chairman.
this is a new amendment. Yes, thank you.
Oh, my.
Yes.
Lots of.
Good evening. My name is Edward Gordon. I'm the trustee of 120 Racing Beach Trust, the owner of the property at 120 Racing Beach. With me this evening is Michael McGrath, our project engineer, who will give a brief description of the request and answer any technical questions. And also joining me is my oldest daughter, Augusta, who's interested to see how local government works. So I'm sure we won't disappoint.
Well, this has been an interesting meeting for her to attend.
Your name takes it too.
Yes. We
I am
don't want her
not.
to be confused.
Thank you.
The request before you this evening is to amend an existing order condition obtained in May 2008. This order is still valid, was approved unanimously by 4 of the current commissioners, and is subject to wetlands regulations at the time of the original filing, which was before the establishment of the A and B buffer zones. You'll hear a little bit more about this later in our request to extend the order of conditions, but we have been the subject of litigation, are still the subject of litigation, which prevents us from constructing a good portion of the project. Earlier in this year of May, we submitted a separate request to amend the existing order conditions. That request was denied on the basis that it was outside the scope of the original permit. It was clear from watching the video of the public hearing and the deliberations that certain commissioners felt that information was lacking in order for them to make a decision. So I don't take lightly the busy schedule of the board, but I feel like I should explain why we're in front of you again. The simple reason is that we did not offer, in my opinion, enough testimony and evidence as to why this should be accepted as an amendment. I, for one, presumed that because it was advertised and noticed as a request for an amendment that we had already overcome the hurdle. I now understand that the commission streamlines the process of first making a determination whether it meets the qualifications to be considered as an amendment, and then looking at the merits of the request itself. So we feel that had we offered more testimony and information, that it would have been accepted as an amendment. So we're here tonight to both address the qualifications and the merits of the request, as well as provide information that may have been lacking the first time around. In good faith, I didn't want to simply re-present the same request. Therefore, in the request before you, we've reduced the scope of the previously proposed amendment by decreasing the proposed fill and the length of the wall by about 25%. We decreased the height of the wall. We increased mitigation plantings by 20%, and we reduced previously approved impervious surfaces, such that there's a net reduction in the overall impervious surface proposed in this plan, in this request, rather. I want to ensure that the commission sees this request as beneficial and not a burden. So we've done, I also didn't want the commission to assume that we're filing this as a request for an amendment in order to circumvent the now current regulations. So we voluntarily proposed mitigation plantings
at a ratio of 3-to-1 in an area that was approved for grass, but would now be considered in the A zone. As an aside, DEP did issue an amended SOC for our first request, and they've indicated that the approval for the current request in front of you will be forthcoming. So, the substance of our request. If I may hand out two of these. Apologize if I don't have enough for everyone. No problem.
Is there enough? I mean, we can.
Yeah, I think we can.
Well, this is just a bigger one of the one that Mike gave us.
No. This one is the scope of the request on top of the 2008 approved plan. The one that is in your packet, I believe, is, shows the proposed request. Let me just make sure. Yeah, the one that's at the last page of your packet is a reduction of the proposed request, and it highlights some of the areas of change. I thought it would be more beneficial for you to actually look at the areas of change on top of the approved. So that's what I just handed you. And what that sketch shows is the boundary of the project should be in the broken dotted black line. It shows the red lines are the regraded areas. The yellow is a proposed retaining wall. The blue is a reduction in the approved patio. And the green is offered mitigation plantings. So the substance of our request compared to the existing permit is really simply to adjust the grade in the backyard. From its high point to its approved low point at the limit of work line. We want to level the backyard so we can make better use of it. In order to adjust the grade, we need to install a retaining wall that is 30 inches above grade at its tallest, and it tapers down to 24 inches as it continues south. And we have steps on the plan as well to be able to access the existing beach path. The length of the wall and the steps is approximately 98 feet. I think it's important to note that the grade elevation at the limit of work has not changed at all. The limit of work boundary in this area has not changed at all. The amount and location of mitigation plantings from 2008 has not changed at all. The wall is a landscape feature which, like most of this project, is likely over-designed, frankly. But we did this because we knew it was abutting a sensitive area and where there's natural vegetation just to the west of it, and we wanted to make sure the wall lasts and that it continues to contribute positively. I note that the retaining walls are not considered structures pursuant to Falmouth zoning code. I don't know where this commission comes out on that, but I did happen to see that. I assume I don't need to twist the commission's arm to add mitigation plantings and reduce impervious surfaces, so I'm going to focus on the retaining wall. The approved plan calls for lawn to slope from elevation 23.5 to elevation 18 at the limit of work at a 2-to-1 slope. That's the black lines you see under the red lines. Since the original approval, we've come to realize that steeply sloping lawn is going to be more difficult to maintain and traverse than flat lawn. It's going to require more water, it's not going to give us as much usable area, and it's going to be difficult at those grades to get to the beach path, especially for older folks like our in-laws who visit often. There's a bit more fill proposed in this area, something in the order of 11%. As it turns out, this fill contributes positively to protecting the resource area, which is described in detail in the package you have, and Mike can speak more to that. In the package, on I think the second to last page, you have a profile of the proposed grade change. It's this. Yep. So at transect BB, which is shown on the larger plan of the proposed request, this is showing the difference in fill. The BB represents the worst-case scenario of additional fill retained by the proposed wall. As you move south, the natural grades increase, so the amount of fill decreases. The total additional fill for the area is 75 cubic yards. This is only 8% increase on the total fill approved for the project. Put this in perspective, 75 cubic yards spread out over the entire work area of the project is less than an inch of increased elevation. This is a large project, folks. It's a 27,000 square foot work area. And that same fill spread out over the area that's being regraded in the backyard would contribute about 6 inches difference. So on average, we're increasing the elevation in the backyard in this particular area by 6 inches. In determining whether our request should be considered as an amendment, I'd like to offer the following points. I guess per the wetlands regulations, an amendment may include minor to moderate changes. The standard for review in section 10.058C2 is whether the request is of a relatively minor nature. I place emphasis on the word relatively. In determining that, the regulations require that the commission consider at least 3 points. Number one, whether the scope has increased. We will show that the scope has not increased. Number two, whether the project meets the relevant performance standards. We will show that the revisions themselves will serve to improve the performance standards achieved under the existing approvals. And number three, whether the potential for adverse impacts to the resource area have increased. We will show that they have decreased. Falmouth regulations go on to say that the same or decreased impact on a resource area values shall be considered a minor change. In the package, in the text, we've submitted justifications as to why the retaining wall will decrease impacts to the resource area values, and I think Mike will speak to that. I'm not aware of any evidence to the contrary. The regulations also tell us that decreasing runoff and increasing infiltration is a benefit, and that is one of the things that our amendment accomplishes. We are creating a break between the lawn and the proposed naturally vegetated area. We feel that by doing this, we're protecting that area from inadvertent human contact. We're certainly protecting it from runoff and promoting better infiltration. The regulations also give us some direction on what are considered moderate activities, erection of fences, which, like retaining walls, are excluded from the definition of structures, Falmouth zoning, conversion of impervious surfaces to vegetated surfaces, the planting of native species, trees and shrubs. Our application includes many of these activities. When we look at relativity, again, 90-foot long retaining wall might seem independently like a like a good-sized project, but compared to the 27,000 square foot work area, and compared to the amount of approved impervious surface, this wall is less than 1% of what we are approved. We have, I think, 12,000 square feet of impervious surface approved, and this is all within your jurisdiction, by the way. Compared to the amount of earthwork, vertical structural walls, fill, drainage, mitigation, basically the totality of the project, this work is relatively minor. I also wanted to point out, as you'll see on the smaller plan that I gave you, there's an existing retaining wall now that's proposed to be covered. That retaining wall is, its horizontal surface is about 850 square feet, whereas the wall we're proposing is, and that retaining wall is going to be covered by anywhere from 1.5 to 5.5 feet of fill. The wall that we're proposing with the steps is 118 square feet. The existing retaining wall retains elevation 22 from elevation 18, whereas the proposed new wall would retain elevation 23 from elevation 18. In a sense, the retaining wall is being relocated to serve the same purpose that it currently does. On the subject of scope, the boundary and limits of the proposal have gotten no bigger. There's one minor expansion of the limit of work, but that's only to plant mitigation plants. It's 100, and that's the green area shown on the smaller plan. And that's an area that is currently grass and was not within the scope of the limit of work of our 2008 permit. So we are essentially taking something that exists and turning it into mitigation plantings.
Could we ask you a couple of questions at this point?
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I'm a minute, and then I'm happy to entertain anything, but I'm afraid I'll lose my train of thought.
Okay.
Thank you. Michael will address the performance standards. I think, again, the package shows that we enhance them, and the potential for adverse effects to the resource areas, as I've described. I think the break provides better protection. I think we've met the standard to be considered as an amendment. Would appreciate your reviewing it as such. Having sat through all the Concom hearings and reviewed all the transcripts as part of the litigation, I believe that had we proposed this work as part of the 2008 application, it would have made very little difference in the end result, which was to be approved. I just don't think it amounts to much. I understand it's maybe it's adding a little vertical to the site, but we've got 12,000 square feet of structures that vary in vertical nature, roof lines and what have you, and I think that it's not increasing runoff, so the increase in vertical really is having no adverse effect. The last thing is I I heard and saw on the video that at least one of the commissioners was dissatisfied with the condition of the site when they visited him. I think it was you, Mr. Corvo.
Yes, it was.
I apologize for that. It's ultimately our fault, but we had a guy in there who was doing pool work on the interior of the pool house. It was over his head, frankly, and that's been rectified. If you visited since then, you'll see that that has been rectified. That's my presentation. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, what I'd like to know is, on one of the things that you presented, Mike, the plan that came in, you show all of the sloped area in front of that as planted with, you show bushes. So is that all going to be native woody vegetation? Pardon me?
Here?
Yep.
Well, this is the same.
This picture. This picture shows your wall,
Yes. Oh, okay,
wall,
sorry.
and it shows all this.
Yep.
So this is all gonna be woody
That was
vegetation
my
also?
question too.
Well, no, the plan view shows where the vegetation is. That's a typical cross-section. The plan view shows where we have vegetation. It's the same thing that we submitted and were approved in 2008. We've not changed the mitigation plans. We're simply raising the plane.
So there are mitigation plantings there?
Put it up.
Here? Here? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, these are, again, this is the approved plan. So all of that has stayed the same. Where we had grass, we're keeping grass. Where we had plantings, we're keeping plantings. That has not changed. We're simply raising the grade of the lawn.
So you're gonna mow on the bottom of that wall?
No, we'll probably plant something.
Why don't you just
sorry.
take these plants all the way over to there?
Well, because we didn't propose that to begin with, because we wanted to improve our views, not to hinder them. That was one of the reasons why we came before you in 2008 to begin with. Now, I will say that I was concerned about increasing the area of impact here, so I did not change where we had grass to something else. We most likely, I would prefer, frankly, to not have to maintain that area on the west side of the wall. So we likely will, with the permission of the commission, or maybe working with Jen, we could plant something else. We'd like those plantings to be somewhat elective, both for aesthetics, and again, we want to preserve our views, because right now, that's all lawn, sloping steeply down to the existing the proposed limit of work.
Yeah, so I would like to suggest that instead of lawn, that we agree that it'll be something that you agree with, that is woody vegetation, but it's low, that it won't grow up above your lawn level.
I'll work with Jen. Again, I prefer it's not grass.
Yeah,
I just don't know what the species would be, and I didn't want to propose something that.
We would prefer it not be grass either. Not that we don't like grass, Mike. But you wouldn't have to maintain it, and it could be something that would be functional for wildlife.
Yep, as long as we're on the same page that we don't want to impinge on the views, I think we could find something lovely.
Mr. Gordon, when your landscape plan is fully developed and you add that, just let me know and I can review that with you, that's fine.
Okay. Again, I didn't propose that here because I wanted to be able to say that the conditions are the same in terms of planting as 2008, and I didn't want to broaden the scope, but I'm perfectly happy to.
Okay, and the other question I had was, from base to summit, this wall looks like it's little over 7 feet to me.
Well,
I
no,
scaled it out.
it's at its worst, it's retaining 20, elevation, top of wall is 23, and bottom of wall is 18. It does have a footing
below that.
Yep, it's an 8-inch footing, but we consider that usually you look at the exposed part of the wall. We don't, generally when you say how big's a wall, you're looking at what the exposed part of the wall is.
Well, I know it's buried. What I'm thinking is, does this need more engineering? I thought if we had a wall that was more than 4 feet high.
No, it's considered only to be 30 inches high, because they only look at the elevation difference between one side of the wall and the other side of the wall. So since the lawn is meeting the top of the wall, the elevation is 24 to 30 inches. The tallest is 30 inches.
I hope you don't get a heavy rain and have it blow out.
Well, this is why as I said, this wall is over-engineered. People look at me like I'm crazy in proposing this, but I want it to look good frankly, I hope that.
I've seen walls like this blow out that weren't properly engineered. That was my comment.
This wall is going to be more than properly engineered.
All right.
It is going to be very sturdy, and it will last.
Okay. I mean, I have to be honest, I voted against your amendment the last time because I didn't fully understand.
And we didn't give you the tools to understand,
The
frankly.
difference.
You asked how much
But
fill
it's
there was, and we
much
weren't able to
clearer,
tell
yeah.
you. You asked a
No,
number
it's
of
much
questions, we
clear-
weren't able to.
It's much clearer now, and I mean, we'll hear what the other board members say, but I don't think, to me, it's within the scope of what you had originally proposed. But we have to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
I understand.
Courtney?
Yeah, I think you clarified a lot of things. So you obviously, you've done your homework, and you made a much clearer presentation, and so we understand where you're going. And I think if we approve this, I think one of the conditions will be to have a planting plan of native vegetation along the seaward side of that retaining wall, which is now, I guess you said grass, or is called for as being grass, yeah. And certainly, you could work with staff and come up with that plan of the types and the density and the spacing and so on. And I think that would satisfy your concerns, and you wouldn't have to maintain it in the same way other than keep it alive, and everybody would be happy with that. And you wouldn't have to mow it either.
Arthur?
No other question.
Great presentation. Thank you for putting it in perspective. I don't have any questions.
No questions.
The comment I made about the site was no reflection on stewardship. And I think another part of that comment was that if I was a homeowner, I'd be disappointed. That's where
I think embarrassed is the word you said, and I was embarrassed.
yeah, it's just unfortunate. I know that you were having, anytime a project goes like that, I look at my own crew, and if I came up on that, I'd be upset. Then it was, again, no reflection on your stewardship.
Well, it's a lesson learned, right?
Yeah, and the 75 yards, I just moved 60 yards of mulch in the last week with a wheelbarrow on a site, me. So I have a true affinity for how much a yard of material is now. Very well spoken. I'm a carpenter by trade. I don't know what your trade is, but you had a very nice presentation. Thank you. And I'm very encouraged that your daughter is here. This is your town too, and I'm glad that you have an interest in this. We have a very diverse board with many different aspects of a project. And your father did a wonderful presentation.
Maureen?
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you for the information.
Ed?
I'm good.
Mike?
I'm good.
Tommy? Okay, then I'll entertain.
I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions? Would you like to ask a question?
Good opportunity.
She wants to know if I'm taking her out to dinner after this.
Oh, well, we
That was the
definitely
deal.
think, if we could make that a condition, we would. Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks.
I'm going to stay here if you don't mind, because I think
You
I'm
want the next one?
Yeah. It's going to be much more brief, I promise.
Request to extend the existing order of conditions. Edward Gordon, 120 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, request to extend the existing order of conditions, DEP number 253437. Jen?
Madam Chairman, the order of conditions for this property expires May 14th of 2013. I spoke to Mr. Gordon today regarding, one of the things we spoke about, along with the amendment, is why the extension is being requested so early, and it's just to give the applicant a certain comfort level that they'll have the time to complete the work. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I
this
just,
is
I
an
didn't
enormous
realize that
project.
that's why it was held up. It was held up in court, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
just
I'd like to
started-
give you some testimony on that.
It has been held up, so the staff is recommending a one-year extension, so it would bring it to 2014, May 14th of 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Would you like to make a comment?
I just
Maybe
want to
you're
say
ahead.
you've captured
Maybe you're
a
ahead,
week.
maybe you shouldn't make any comment.
You're ahead.
Yeah.
You're ahead.
Okay.
All-
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll let you say something afterwards.
All
All
right.
in favor of the motion on the table, which is to extend this order for a year, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, just one quick question, Mr. Gordon, that other item that you sent us some information on, the request for mediation, just to let you know that's next week. There's a glitch in the agenda, so.
Would be discussed by the board next week?
Next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you know when the deliberations would occur for tonight's request?
It would have to be next week, because they do not meet August 1st.
Okay, so August 15th, is that what I heard?
No, next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Before, okay.
July 25th, they don't meet August 1st, so we have to give you an answer within 21 days, so.
Got it. Thank you for the extension. I've been held up in 5 pieces of litigation by the same guy, and it's still ongoing. So it's been brutal, and clearly it's a huge project, and I can't start it without knowing that I can finish it in time. So I appreciate that.
Right, and if you haven't started yet, you're not going to finish it in 8 months. or
Yes,
whatever.
that's true.
Especially if we have a bad winter, we all hope we don't have.
Madam Chairman, do not jinx us.
And hurricane season. Okay. Speaking of voting orders of conditions,
Madam Chairman, those will be done next week.
well, we can skip right on to other business. And we have
none.
no other
I
business.
move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
That was fast.